Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Thoughts If It Were You, Food for Thought by Neo Gentrics. We're going to continue on with the next moral. We've already covered a good some of them. There's only a few left. I do believe about 3 or 4, including this one. We're going to go ahead and finish up with compassion. It's one of those things that is said to be understood, but in the long run is sadly overlooked as kindness, friendliness, such is the nature of mankind. But the sad truth is that has nothing to do with it whatsoever. Compassion, by definition, is sympathetic pity and concern for the suffering or misfortunes of others. This is the true definition of compassion. Okay? Compassion means quite literally to suffer with others. It is therefore a sense of feeling, fellow feeling with other people's pain and suffering. It's often linked with empathy, which we covered earlier, and also with sympathy in many people's minds. This, however, an element of action. There is, however, an element of action in compassion that is missing from sympathy and empathy altogether, which are totally focused on feeling. Okay? Compassion leads you to take actions to help the other person, not just feel for them. Okay? Aristotle suggested that there was a distinction between compassion and other virtues, in that compassion could also be an emotion. In other virtues, he suggested there is a separate emotion, anger, and is often felt as injustice, for example. The virtue of compassion, therefore, is a tendency to feel the emotion of compassion at the right times, in the right ways, and to the right extent. Or, as Aristotle put it originally, compassion is a pain at an impression of destruction or painful evil as befalling one who doesn't deserve it, and which one might expect oneself or someone close to oneself to suffer when it seems nearby. Loosely translated, whether it's usually pain inflicted on someone that you know or don't know, that's close to you, whether it be yourself or someone else. A more modern slant on compassion would be, compassion then is the result of seeing someone suffering, deciding that they do not deserve it, and feeling that something similar could easily happen to you or to someone that you care about. The nearness of the problem may be crucial to the desire to take action. There is an implication that without this closeness, you would simply feel sympathy, and not that need to take action, which is part of compassion. While this sounds plausible, for example, let's use this. Bob desired to do something to alleviate the suffering of those caught up in the Ethiopian famine in the 1980s. He was driven by television pictures, not by first-hand experience or by reading about it. Comic Relief and similar organizations have spent considerable effort taking celebrities to witness both suffering and the programs that alleviate it firsthand in order to bring the situation closer to home and to create more impact and desire to do something to help. Let's take this second here while we're talking about compassion. Now let's talk about religion related to it, okay? It's valued in many world religions, including Hinduism, Judaism, and even Christianity. God is seen as being compassionate and merciful, and there are many teachings about the importance of compassion towards others as well. For example, Jesus told a parable about a man who fell among thieves and was rescued by a good Samaritan, who had compassion for him, even though the man was a different race and creed. The Dalai Lama said compassion is a necessity, not a luxury. Whereas in Matthew 7:12 in the Bible, using the, well, it doesn't really matter the version, that's fine. So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them. Another verse that talks about this is Colossians 3:12. Put on them as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts. I couldn't have worded that any better. However, there's another issue about compassion in the Christian tradition. It lacks any sense that the suffering should not be deserved. Okay? Christians believe that God welcomes sinners and forgives them because he is compassionate. It does not matter whether they have sinned deliberately or brought their troubles on themselves. This is an important trait to have nonetheless. Let's take compassion to the workplace. Compassion is perhaps the virtue that is most important for doctors, but it's also important for others too. Anyone who manages others must be able to feel compassion for those that they manage when it is appropriate. This will motivate them to do something in their role as line managers to help that person. It is also possible to argue that we should all be aware of the need of compassion towards others. Workplaces are often cited as harsh and hard places. It's a dog-eat-dog world, as you all know. And a little compassion exercised appropriately could go a long way towards making them feel more human. Research shows that the workers who feel that they are treated with compassion are more committed to their jobs, which is good news for their employers. The importance of compassion. Research shows that compassion has a neurological basis, in that feeling of compassion affects particular parts of our brains. It also shows that being compassionate makes us feel good. It activates pleasure centers in the brain, a bit like eating chocolate, which has a positive effect on self-esteem. Being compassionate can actually be good for your health because it seems to slow your heart rate down, which could reduce the risk of heart disease and stress. One compassion training program was found to help reduce stress in those who attended the program. Compassion tends to make us better at communicating and relating to others, whether that's partners, children, parents, or friends. Improving social relationships are generally agreed to be good for you, and societies which are on balance more compassion, that take steps to care for vulnerable members of society and help those in need, tend on average to be happier. Okay? Feeling concerned about someone else, wanting to do something to help them, and then doing it is good for you, for those around you, and for the society as a whole. Let's find a balance. There is, however, a balance point for compassion. Feeling too much compassion can be as bad as feeling too little. Compassion fatigue is a phrase used for those who have to witness or hear about a lot of suffering. Okay? To protect themselves from the personal emotional impact of what they are reading, they close down their emotional response and try not to feel compassion, whether consciously or unconsciously. This can have knock-on effects on them and those around them because it affects their other emotions and cognitive responses. Compassion fatigue is now a recognized medical condition. This is something to make note of. This is, of course, more, how do I put this? Most important for those managing clinical staff and other professionals who work, brings them into contact with the illness and suffering. So many people, let me see here. But many people have suggested that constant media images of suffering may have similar effects on the rest of us in making us more cynical and about the real impact of suffering. In other words, the pictures are less able to bring suffering closer, and we become more likely to insist on first-hand experience before feeling compassion. In other words, we become complacent and used to seeing it where it becomes the norm. This should never be the case. It is important to be aware of these responses and resist the urge towards cynicalism. Okay? Feeling compassion is a vital part of being human. It is also important to take appropriate action as a result of feeling compassion, as the proverb goes. Give a man a fish, and you will feed him for a day, but teach a man to fish, and you'll feed him for a lifetime. Compassion wrongly expressed, the provision of fish may result in immediate alleviation of suffering, but no long-term effects. Compassion expressed in the right way, teaching the skill, can and should provide long-term solutions. Remembering this could save a lot of pain later on in the future, and this is something to make note of. Compassion is one of those skills that is required in order to move forward in life. Even the most evil villains in the world show compassion, believe it or not. Whether it be to their own men or his own family, regardless of how much evil he does or ensues in the world. Well, that brings a close to this particular topic on compassion. Next, we only have 2 others left to cover. We have courage and equality. Like I said, I'm holding off on doing integrity for a while. That's fine. But next time we should be covering patience, as it's one of the few morals out there that is easily forgotten about or overlooked. And we're going to look at the importance of it too. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day.